Hey guys, welcome back for another video of the Modern Investor. I hope you are all doing great. Hope you're all feeling great today. Today is pretty sunny outside, so it's a nice feeling. This video is going to be about cashless societies and if they are possible. And I ask this because, as you have seen, if you've been alive for the last 10 years, you have slowly seen that nearly everything that we do is more digital. And that is even as far as the things that, we don't write papers anymore. We kind of, hand them in on computers. When you go to the store, you kind of just, tap for a payment and stuff like that. There are far more places now that do not accept cash than there were even 10 years ago, which is a bit alarming because I'm from a time, I'm not even 30 yet, and I still, I prefer to pay in cash just because it's physical, just handing money over and stuff like that. But there are tons and tons and tons of people who just do not carry cash anymore. And you have to think sometimes, how much do you normally have in your wallet? There are certain days where, okay, I live in a place where you kind of have to have cash on you. This is kind of the thing. In Germany, they have a system where if you do not carry cash, 90% of the time you will probably not get service. If you go to a supermarket, if you go to I want to say Starbucks, or maybe even like a higher end restaurant, what have you, you can pay in card. But if you go to many other places like cafes, certain bars, certain types of restaurants where like the meals are like under 20 euros and stuff like that, $20, you have to pay completely in cash. And it kind of gets frustrating sometimes if you don't have the cash on you, because, sometimes you are used to just paying with a card. You used to just swiping it. I used to live in New York, and this was even in 2005 when I was still living there. They had introduced, this like tapping system where you can tap your card and everything. And it's the same with the metro and stuff like that. Now everything is becoming to where you don't actually need money anymore, cash rather. And yeah, that is kind of the question of the day. Like, what do you think about this? There's a huge push in a lot of countries, especially Sweden and India, where they are trying to go completely cashless. You heard about the thing in India where the, I want to say the president, he got rid of their 500 and 1,000 rupee bills. That was a huge thing, and people were kind of freaking out for it because a lot of the merchants who live in India, they usually deal with this money. He said it was because of money laundering. We don't know if that's true, but there are tons and tons of people who deal with this. They need cash. Like, it's, I don't know how else to explain it. I've said in other videos before, there are currently 2 to 3 billion people on Earth who do not have bank accounts. And it's estimated that by 2030 that we will almost live in a completely cashless society. We see this, like you see this everywhere completely right now. And it kind of begs the question, what then happens to the poorest people among us? Like, literally, like, what happens to these people? If you see a homeless person sitting on the street, sometimes, people will walk by, they'll give them 20, 50 cents, what have you. What happens when everything is digital? What happens when everything is just on a card? What happens when we have digital wallets on our phone? How do we help these people? I don't know. It's more of like I want to say like an ethical thing that kind of comes down to all of it. But we definitely see this happening because the governments have found that it's easier to track our payments when everything is by card, when everything is digital, because, is like a complete ledger of everything. If you can get everyone to believe that cash is then evil and everyone is just using everything digital, then everything can be tracked. And this is for tax purposes. And they always say money laundering and what have you. A large part of the problem is that a lot of people do fear theft, especially if you're in a larger city. There are tons of people who do not like to carry cash. And that's actually how I was when I was living in other major cities. I lived in Paris for a while. I lived in London. I lived in New York. And there are certain times, especially like certain times of night when you're walking down the street and, someone gets kind of close or whatever, something like that. I've seen other assaults in the street, and you kind of sit there and wonder, and you're like, I wish I wasn't carrying cash right now because, if I just had my card on me, they could take the card, but they don't have the PIN, which is also to the next point that a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people have this as well. Like I said, even in 2005, they started to introduce this, and it's kind of like this like tapping method. They're doing it more and more with Visa and MasterCard and other cards, because if you're at a Starbucks, if you are getting coffee, if you're anywhere, you kind of just take out your card, you tap it, and then, you get handed a receipt, which I think is really, really horrible, because even now at Starbucks, you can swipe your card and all they ask you for is a signature. And it's like, I've sat there and thought many times, I was like, what if someone had taken my card and they just kind of, walked around town, like they're like CVS, Rite Aid, all these other places. They don't really ask you for anything except for a signature on a screen. People usually just draw a line and then they kind of just walk away. And, I mean, no one's going to go $1 million shopping at any of these places. But if they have your card and this goes on for days and days and days without you knowing it, it could eventually add up, especially as people get like higher priced items, I want to say. So there's kind of a huge divide, especially with the younger generation. Like I said, I'm not even 30 yet, but I've noticed that my younger cousins and stuff like that, they prefer that everything is digital. They have grown up in a world where there has always been the internet. I grew up when the internet was just coming about, everything was kind of like blossoming and stuff like that. So I'm used to physical things. I'm used to CDs and all these other things. And younger people, they don't like paper. I don't know what it is, that when I take notes for things, like I take them on a piece of paper. I know other people who are younger than me and they take it directly on their phone. So it's like, yeah, I think this is eventually bound to happen. Like there's nothing in my mind, unless like a huge cyber security attack, like something really dramatic happens that we just can't predict at the current moment, actually happens and takes place. I think that this is going to happen, and I don't think many older people will be happy with it. I don't think that we should do this. Like I said, it's going to be real. Like there's a huge push against homeless people right now, whether you realize it or not. There are tons of cities that are like breaking benches, or they're making benches so that you can so that it's no longer like a complete flat surface for one person to lay on. They're making them, into 4 individual chairs with that like curve to the buttocks. So if you try to lay on it, it is really uncomfortable because you're laying across 4 chairs. There are tons of other places where they're putting like spikes on the ground where homeless people are known to sleep. And then, we kind of have this thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's like a war against them, but it's kind of weird that all these things are constantly happening year after year after year. In America, I think it's something like there are 3 million homes or 5 million homes or something like that spread across America that are just completely empty, that no one's using, whether they are abandoned or like completely like possible to be used. And we've figured out that all the homeless people could fit into these homes. Like we've done the math, like we understand that there's enough space for everyone, but we're not giving the space to these people because a lot of society deems them as they're not wanted or whatever the case have you. But the point is that I think we are living in a very interesting time where we're seeing all these changes happen. Like I said, I grew up before there was an internet, and to see these things happening so rapidly and at a quicker pace, like so many of the predictions that we have now for things that we're doing, they thought we wouldn't have until around 2030, maybe 2040. And these things are happening in 2017. And it's like, what's going to happen then in, by 2030? Like, how different will the world be? There's so many people who now use, I don't know if you guys have been inside of, an Apple store. Like the workers kind of walk around, and as you're making purchases and stuff like that, or if you don't want to wait on the line, they'll come up to you with their iPhone, and there's like a little thing attached to the top of the iPhone, and you kind of just swipe your card on it, and then payment goes through there. So like there's no longer a need to even go through the cashiers, and everything is kind of wireless. I think it is very interesting, and this is why I talk about cryptocurrencies and stuff like that and digital money on this channel, because it's good to have a heads up. It's good to understand that these things are going to happen, and I want to say just be prepared. I mean, not to sound like ominous and stuff like that. Like, just make sure that when you are making your money and stuff like that, especially, I've said this before in other videos as well, if you are making content, if you are trying to reach the masses and stuff like that, I'm very big on telling people and trying to push people into making their own YouTube videos, into writing their own books like I've done, into doing things online that other people will be able to find, because this is going to happen, and we will definitely live in a cashless society if we are not even there already. Like I said, there are certain countries that are actually, I want to say, against it, and that's because they are very big on labor and stuff like that. Like I said, Germany is definitely one of them, and there are a couple other countries, especially ones that have gone through like economic crises and stuff like that. They're still holding on to their money. But any country that has like been economically prosperous, like the UK, like America, these places are without a doubt. But yeah, all right, guys, I hope you guys are having a great day. Like I said before, I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, leave me a comment below if you think this is happening already, or if you think this is happening a little bit too quick like I do. But I mean, it's progress, and I don't think realistically that we can stop it. You know, we're just we're just people. We're not the government. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you all soon.